What is up, you guys? It's Monty, and today I'm here with my November wrap-up. And it feels kind of crazy that November is already over, but here we are. As you can tell, I still have not cleared away my unhauled books. We're just gonna make do. I'm gonna go through these in the order that I read them. Let you know my thoughts and opinions. I don't think any one of these has a standalone review, and for that I apologize, but I'll try and link in the cards up above the Friday reads where I gave my wrap-up thoughts on them, as well as link all of my Goodreads reviews down below. For some of them, I can tell you for sure that a video is coming. And when I get to them, I probably will discuss them as a set and you'll know. But a video on that is going to come. It's just not something that I prioritized at this current moment. So with all of that disclaimer stuff out of the way, let's just jump in. The first thing that I read in the month of November was A River of Royal Blood by Amanda Joy. Now, Penguin Teen did send this to me, so I did not, spend my money on it, but all the thoughts that I have on this book are my own, and I wound up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. It is a fantasy set in a fictionalized West African country. It deals with sibling rivalry. I think people have described it as Three Dark Crowns meets Children of Blood and Bone. I haven't read Three Dark Crowns, but I understand there's a similar setup where the sisters have to fight for the crown. As for the Children of Blood and Bone comparison, I'm certain that's just because Children of Blood and Bone is a very high-profile West African-inspired fantasy aimed at younger audiences. I really don't think they have much in common. I think that A River of Royal Blood is really great, though. I really appreciated the discussions of colonization and the impact that has on a ruler, and it was interesting to see that from a Black perspective as the conquering people. So that was really interesting. 10 out of 10 would recommend, and like I said, I'll leave a link up in the cards to my discussion on that. Then I read Dare Me, and it was okay. I read Dare Me because I saw a trailer for the USA TV adaptation, and it was a thriller set around a cheerleading squad where the lieutenant cheerleader, so not like the head one, but like her little lieutenant lady, got super involved with the cheer coach's life, and there was a murder, and it just wasn't a very good book. I gave it 2 stars, I think. I might have given it 1 star. I wasn't a big fan of this one at all. I don't think it was particularly well done. And it just didn't move me. It was a fast-paced book, though. I think it was only like 290 pages, so it was a fast read, and if it sounds like an interesting premise, you might enjoy it a lot more than I did, but it wasn't really for me. I don't think I was really the target demographic for this read. Then I read the Bromance Book Club, which I also gave 1 star to. I think this might have been my least favorite read of the month. It's billed as a couple trying to save their marriage, and I don't think that's what it is at all. What I got from the Bromance Book Club by Alyssa K. Adams was his wife, Thea, and our main character's name was Gavin, I want to say, was like, bitch, I want a divorce. And instead of being like, okay, and then them learning, to co-parent or whatever, and I knew this wasn't going to be a thing because it is a romance novel, and so for it to be a romance novel in that category, there has to be a happily ever after. And so I knew that wasn't going to be the setup. Like, that's not really a happily ever after, the main couple not being together. But it just felt like he was never respecting what she wanted, and I never really thought that either of them really communicated about their issues in a way that I was like, okay, you guys have learned, you guys have grown, you've come together, and it just felt like he was just, I want to be with you because I want to be with you, and she was just kind of like, over the course of the novel, like, okay, we can make this work. I didn't get cute vibes from it. I don't think that's a poorly written book. It just wasn't a book that was for me. I don't think that I was really the target demographic for that one. I am in the minority. A lot of people on BookTube have read this one and loved it. So if it was on your radar and you did want to check it out, I don't think that my thoughts and opinions should deter you from it, but I don't think that book is cute or romantic at all. After the Bromance Book Club, I picked up The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chokshi, and I also gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. And in that, I said, if you liked A River of Royal Blood by Amanda Joy, I think you will like The Gilded Wolves. And conversely, I think if you like The Gilded Wolves, I think you will like A River of Royal Blood. I think that they are very similar in their approach to discussions about colonization and that impact that it has on people. The Gilded Wolves I give a little bit more points to because it's set in our world, even though it's in like the 1800s, I want to say. But it does deal with like our people, but like real minorities. So actual Filipino people, actual Jewish people, actual. I think there's a person from India in the book. So there's a lot of diversity in the book. It's an own voiceless novel for a lot of the representation in it. And so, yeah, I think it was great, and I really appreciated it, and I think that more people should read it. After The Gilded Wolves, I picked up The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. And I talked about this a little bit. I didn't make a standalone video because the only thing that bothered me was how Taryn was handled. I'm not going to get into it again. I think that on just a general basis, The Queen of Nothing is a perfectly fine 3-star book. It wraps up the trilogy that Holly Black was wanting to tell, and it does it decently. But I don't think it was a good book, for me personally, at all. I think that it did need to be longer. I don't care that Holly Black typically doesn't write long novels. I think that at the very least, it should have been just as long as The Cruel Prince was. And I didn't like that the series got progressively shorter, because I feel like as the series went on, the quality dipped. Although I do still think that The Wicked King is probably my least favorite, but that's a discussion for another day. But yeah, I felt that Taryn got the short change in The Queen of Nothing, and I thought that a lot of the events in the book, while not rushed, I don't think the book ever really felt rushed, but it never really felt like it clicked for me. And so, I think it's not a very satisfying conclusion to a reader like me, but I think that to a lot of readers, I can understand why they gave it 5 stars, why they appreciated it. It just, if you have always been middle of the road about the books, the series, I don't think that this is really going to wow you. I think you had to be like a really die-hard fan, like a ride or die. Like, even if you were just like, I'm enjoying the series, I don't think this is a satisfying conclusion. Like, you have to be a ride or die. Like, there's no middle lane for The Queen of Nothing. After The Queen of Nothing, I set about to finish The Mortal Instruments. And so I read City of Fallen Angels, City of Lost Souls, and today, as of filming this, City of Heavenly Fire. Do I think that any of these books are necessary additions to the Mortal Instruments series as a whole? Is this in the right order? No. No, I don't think that any of these 3 books needed to be written in order to tell the story that Cassandra Clare set out to tell in the City of Bones. I don't know why I put that in there. That's not in the title. But the book, like the series, started with City of Bones, and I think that it really could have ended with City of Glass. All of this is really just to further flesh out already previously established characters. None of the characters that were introduced in City of Glass, so Aileen Penhallow, Helen Blackthorne, they don't really get anything to do over the course of this series, like these additional books. We just get a lot of Sebastian wanting to be an incestuous, rapey person, and he's a very low-level threat, in my opinion, and I don't think that it works particularly well juxtaposed against the already incestuous thoughts and behaviors that we saw in City of Ashes. And while we all know how that turned out, I feel like you can't have it both ways. You can't have his incestuous behavior be the crux of his, like, demonic evilness when our protagonists in this story were just, it was fine. I also think there's this scene in City of Heavenly Fire that everyone really loves, or at least I think people really love it. But it's ripped directly from, I want to say Clockwork Prince, but it might have happened in Clockwork Princess, and I'm like, you can't, like, I read this already. Like, you already gave me a very similar setup, Cassandra Clare, and I'm not going to appreciate you giving it to me again in the conclusion of the other series. I also think that when I read Clockwork Princess, I was under the assumption that City of Heavenly Fire had already come out, and so I was really mad that I read Clockwork Princess and I read the epilogue, because I feel like the epilogue kind of spoils the events of City of Heavenly Fire, which is weird because City of Heavenly Fire wasn't out at the time that Clockwork Princess was published. So I don't know if I would recommend reading that trilogy before this one, But I also don't feel like the Infernal Devices is important reading at all for this, because all of the characters that appeared in that, while two of them kind of show up here, they're not at all important to these characters. Like, they're direct descendants. And you have these characters, like, who are these people? Like, why are they important? And I'm like, that's like 2 generations removed from you. How do you not... Yeah, so I think that reading that before I read this kind of fucked things up, and I don't think the Infernal Devices is better. I think, so far, the Mortal Instruments is my favorite trilogy. Is not even my favorite trilogy. You know what? It is. I think both trilogies, so the original Bones, Ash, and Glass, and this one where it's just like character development essentially, are all better books than the Infernal Devices. And I think that the Infernal Devices are the worst books Cassandra Clare has ever written. And I don't think they are important to the understanding of the Shadow World. I actually think that if you read those books, the world becomes disturbingly small, and it makes shipping things in every series kind of weird, because at that point they're all cousins. Like, they literally, they are cousins. Like, I don't care if you're the 16th cousin, like, you're a fucking cousin. Like, chill the fuck out. City of Heavenly Fire, though, I think might be my favorite. I think I gave it 3 stars. It's not the only Mortal Instruments book I gave 3 stars. But this book single-handedly made me really fall in love with Mark Antony Blackthorne, and I'm very excited to read the Dark Artifices to see how his story plays out. I did think that this ending was kind of fucked and kind of prolonged, but again, I'll leave my link to the Goodreads review down below. But overall, I'm really happy that I finished these 3. I don't know if they're a crucial reading. I don't think that if you haven't picked up the series, you're like missing out on anything. But I do appreciate the character development that went on here, except for Alec. Alec, he could still fucking rot in a corner as far as I'm concerned. He's not redeemed. I do not fuck with book Alec. Oh, also, while I'm here, I probably will talk on this if I ever get around to doing a standalone, in-depth discussion of my thoughts on the Shadowhunter world. But I do think that the TV show that everyone hates in Shadowhunter fandom for whatever fucking reason did a much better job of adapting these 3 books than I just do. I also think that's the way that people really hate on the TV show and love the movie when it's the same production people behind it, like Constantine Films did the film and the TV show. But I think the TV show did a much better job. And in particular, I think they did a better job of adapting City of Heavenly Fire. A lot of things are different. A lot of things. But I think that the overall story just works better on the show. So come for me in the comments if you want. But I do think that I think the show did it better. And then the last book that I read, I picked up House of Salt and Sorrows again by Aaron A. Craig. And I did not go back to the beginning of this book and start over. I was on page like 146 and I just went from there. And I do not like this book. I do not like this book a really lot. And if I hadn't already sprayed the edges, I probably would have it up here in my donate pile. Because I just... Part of it, I think, is I'm not familiar with the story of the 12 Dancing Princesses, with the fairy tale that's being retold here. So I can't take, the things that I think are bad, that are just, you have to do because you're doing a 12 Dancing Princesses retelling, from what just Aaron A. Craig did with the narrative. I don't know which is which, and so I didn't rate it on Goodreads, but I wasn't a fan of this. I think that the first half of the book and the back half of the book are 2 completely different stories. There is no bridge in terms of tone. The first half of the book sets up like this really haunting, I don't even say really haunting, but a decently haunting, ghosty vibe set in this vaguely fantastical world. And I say vaguely fantastical because it's obviously historical, but it's in a made-up country on this made-up place, and they, I don't say they worship the sea god, but the sea god is like a thing, and so there's like vague fantasy elements, but it feels more like a ghost story. And then at around the like 150 point, which isn't even halfway through the book, it's a little bit before the halfway point, what I'm assuming the 12 Dancing Princess angle comes in, where they're dancing all night at these balls, and so we're skipping like large amounts of time because they're dancing at these balls that we don't really get to see them go to. They just kind of say that they go there and days are passing, which I'm not a fan of in stories. I do not like when a story like rapidly skips through time and just I'm vaguely aware of what they were doing. I don't like that at all. It bothers me. That's just the kind of reader that I am. But then the back half of the book, there's like demigods appearing, a trickster spirit, all kinds of like weird and wonky like fantasy elements that don't feel at all connected to the first half of the book. And what makes it worse is when after like a series of 12 different twists in a row, none of which I thought were handled well or executed well or like put in a way where I understand what was happening, the person who's behind everything is revealed. And I feel like I messaged Heather when I was at 24 pages. So here I am on the the 10th of October, I reached out saying, please tell me that this person is out here killing these people. And Heather was like, I'm not gonna answer that for you, which, you know, valid. And then I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna hope that I'm wrong. And here I am, almost over a month later, and I wasn't wrong. So I'm just kind of like, if you were gonna go through all of these twists, then I feel like I should, like, I don't know. It didn't feel worth it. It was like, oh, I couldn't even be wrong. As of right now, this is unrated. I might try and pick it up again in the future and, like, read through it, not in, like, you know, one half of the book here and then, like, a month later the other half. And in between, I'll probably go and, like, watch a Swan Princess, or 12 Dancing Princesses adaptation, or read the fairy tales so I can know. But it just wasn't a book for me. So that's all I have to say. Here is the stack of what I read. Overall, I think November was a really good reading month for me, mainly because I did enjoy my journey finishing The Mortal Instruments, River of Royal Blood, The Gilded Wolves. Like, it was a good reading month. There were some low points. There were some, like, meh reads in there. But overall, I really had a good time. So let me know down in the comment section below what your reading month was like for the month of November. I'll see you guys again soon with the Friday reads. But until then and until next time, bye.